And then there's another kind of infrastructure, another type that is, say, an extractive tendril, you know, that road into the rainforest, which allows the removal of the resources, just because one thinks that so much of this in Africa and Latin America has been of that latter type.
Sure, you're quite right. These are two very different categories.
But there's no term to refer to that.
No. I mean, you know, there's a road. Why is the road built?
A manifesto is a present tense statement of material intent. Manifesto describes systemic problems in terms of structural responses. A manifesto describes evil as a type of experience to be surmounted. A manifesto is a model of reality, singularly cut out for manifesting teleonomy. A manifesto is a four-dimensional narrativity. Sorry, but it's a teleology. A teleology. We gotta go DC with the grid, plug computer direct to the sun, recycle a million, utterly useless, always on, and evilly warm, wall warts, into gorgeous batteries of batteries, standard, top quality, universal standard, economically recyclable, into the next and the next motto. We mustn't speak of restoration. It was weak to begin with. We must speak of making it a maximally realistic, closest navigation to reality. We almost there at the unconcealing
Template of the narrative of elaboration. This is the arc of the narrative. If this is the materialism and its ascent to traction on scale, this is the degree to which the materialism has been universalized. The materialism can never actually make the organs. It can just support the logic of the organs. And you had to designate a brief for some all-powerful formation of the future. What would the brief look like in a couple of words?
Well, first of all, my brief would be about 2 pages. It wouldn't define anything. It would have to be open, and have to be open to openness. Therefore, I'd ask my then technical specialist to come up with a system which can respond to that openness in, most importantly of all, unforeseeable circumstances. I would call it rediscover the grid. I mean, literally, the simplicity and the democratic potential of the grid, which of course can be distorted like medieval cities in Italy, or regular like Manhattan or Barcelona. It's irrelevant. But there's a sort of implicit openness about that, which allows anybody in a way to live there and meet others who are different. So,
is it something like giving a iterative form to just rhizomatic momentum? Because what you've described so far, the growth of the cities, these are really momentums. And then when you describe the grid, it's starting to name an ideal form for that momentum. But there is no narrative in that. There is no sort of designation of an endpoint.
The fact that there isn't a designation of an endpoint is what I'm interested in. Every single typology or urban form which has tried to have a synchronous relationship between an ideology and a spatial type has failed. From Leonardo da Vinci's sort of ideal cities to Le Corbusier's sort of models of the Ville Voisin or Chandigarh built in India. You need, and that's my point, a system, physical system, which is open to inhabitation by completely different and totally unexpected social and economic...
In the aftermath of World War III, we made a sacrifice to the gods. We begged for mercy. We promised to formalize redundancy as the shell of a bureaucracy. Oh, as an organ waiting for a function, ready to pounce on the unknown unknowns, ready to fill up with meaning.
So in that sense, design something which is in a way nearly independent of function in its specific way. Let me give you classic examples. Canary Wharf, tower blocks, 45 meters deep from one end to the other, could never be converted from a banking hall to a place where people live, simply because there's just too much depth to have daylight.
The thickness of the air over Malaysia, 41 million tons of ships in the Straits of Singapore, growing hanging gardens of Babylon from their hulls. The shipbreakers of Bengal Bay cut them down to spin new masts and weave new sails for the remainder.
I think the form of the city and the form of the buildings has to be able to live on.
That's what I want to say is you're always on about the DNA of the city. What do you mean about that? Do you really mean that?
Yeah.
Is it still on?
Because
I think we've covered it.
All right.
Yes.
The DNA is what I was talking about.
The DNA is section rather than punch.
The DNA is the formal physical structure which is defined in 3 dimensions and not in 2, which determines social behavior. Or sorry, it doesn't determine, which makes possible certain forms of social behavior.
So what is the DNA of a body then?
I can tell you what the DNA of a city is, but not of a body.
But to use, there is no like scientific principle.
It's the metabolism. It's the metabolism. It's the mechanism which keeps the thing going. And sometimes it doesn't work, so you have to retrofit and put a pacemaker. But the system is there, and you have to understand the relationships between the different organs and the links and the veins and everything else. And the city is very, very similar to that. Bodies have certain universal properties, but we're all different from each other.
At the DNA level,
Yeah.
not really.
Very little
Well,
difference.
No, I realize
because I know that he was working on super deadline because tomorrow he has to hand it in. So we asked him if he wanted to join us for dinner. He said no.
Don't you agree with my ideas?
And then he
Agree with what I think.
You really think that's what I was? No, I don't. I wasn't saying that. You haven't heard any of my ideas. You want to hear my idea?
No!
Can I turn the camera on?
Yes. Okay. Fine. Yes.
Tell us about your idea.
I want to just finish this up.
This is due tomorrow. You see, I put on a fresh shirt for the final day. And I'm trying, really what I realize what I'm trying to do is respond to experience narrativity, and yet make it be an ontological work about narrativity and endpoints. And I have an endpoint, and so what I'm doing is seeing whether there is this exceptional speed scale of experience. That's the thing, it's like this weird little thing. It's adrenaline, why we need a narrativity, it's a deadline, it's a position out in the future, it's a structural position that we, anyway. I don't care if we land 65 miles down the riverbank from it. I want to know where we're going. I want to know where we're building towards. I don't care if I land 65 miles down the riverbank from it. I want to know where we're going. I want to know where we're building towards. I don't care if we land 65 miles down the riverbank from it. I want to know where we're going. I want to know what we're building towards.